Catus Maximus here, this time with a review of the Harbor Freight Knockout Punch Kit. This cuts out 4 sizes of pipe, through hole, through sheet metal, 1/2 inch, 3/4, 1, and 1 1/4 inches. These can be used in a variety of situations, from cutting holes in sinks to automotive uses. I actually bought this set a long time ago. Harbor Freight still does sell these, so this is one of their oldest tools that is still around. I think they're a little better quality now than they used to be before, but how these work is that you have a bolt with a ball bearing on it and a punch, and so these have been really common in the electrician's trade when they need to punch holes in electrical boxes, primarily enlarging holes, because these tools require a hole to already exist. So it's a great use of a step drill, but this is a little ball bearing up here, and so this would go through the hole, and then you'd have the cutting piece here that threads onto the back. You want to make sure to oil the threads, and then you thread it all the way down, and then it squishes the piece of sheet metal between the die and the cutter here and just pulls it through, and there's a little cutout here and there's a little undercut inside the die, and they make pretty precise holes. Now, one thing I did think was amusing was that Harbor Freight did compare these to the $100 set of Kleins. These are, I think, less than $25. The coupon, like 20 bucks. They're a great deal, but it is a similar tool to a Klein, but definitely not the same quality. And we can see that because the cutting edge here has a little bit of issues. I've only used this one, I think, once on sheet metal, and they just advertise it being carbon steel, not high-speed steel or any other kind of really nice tool steel. So not the greatest steel. And then the grind on the actual cutting die, some of them are better, some of them are pretty blunt right here and have like a bunch of little bit curling and just aren't super sharp. And so sometimes you have to use quite a bit of pressure with these Harbor Freights. It's just the deal is that it's one of their namesake tools, because these types of punch sets are actually truly around $100 for professional grade, and many times you don't use them very often. Electricians use them once again just to enlarge holes. The smallest size here actually uses a different kind of bolt, and so what prevents the cutting edge from spinning is the fact that it just grips into the back of whatever sheet metal that you're using, and then you just thread it on. On the smaller one, there's just too much friction on the nut side, so they actually include this bolt, which has a little 8mm tang. These are 25mm nuts, so they are metric. They're a little bit odd. Another thing I was going to mention about these is they can be hand resharpened on the grinder. You just have to be pretty careful about that, as well as actual cutting die, because you can always take the cutting die and put it real against something flat and sand it down to help restore the edge. So that is one nice aspect of these, is they're actually pretty easy to resharpen. You have these wide angles here, so it's pretty easy to get that on the edge of a grinding wheel and just hit these edges here and give them a nice sharpening. They are intended for mild steels and plastics. You can use them in thinner gauge stainless steels and alloy steels, such as automotive panels, but it will be pretty hard on them. I'll just do a quick demonstration just to show how these work in plastic. This is where I've used them quite a bit. They make pretty nice holes in plastic if you need just the specific sizes. They are kind of odd because you have to have these whole kits, so that's why they're really intended just for pipe and conduit, just because you have to have this whole die and cutter set for each and every specific size. And even from Harbor Freight, if you're going to get one that covered 16 sizes, it would be $100 from Harbor Freight. So we've got this all tightened down on the piece of plastic, and on this little one, we do have to get a wrench on there. It's super tight fitting, surprisingly enough. And then all you would do is you would just hold the little shank here and tighten down the nut. And they are kind of slow. It's kind of hard to find ratcheting box wrenches on this the bigger one. It's easier because you can just use a socket on it. Every once in a while you'll run into where the die does spin on the material until it kind of starts to bite, and that's always an adventure. And so we just thread this thing down. Even in plastic, it's surprising. These Harbor Freights just have such a poor edge. I mean, this is like polyethylene. It's only a 1/16 of an inch thick, and I'm still actually having to put quite a bit of force on this tool just to get the darn thing to cut. It's starting to cut through. It's really surprising. These, when they're, I'm going to get this into a better position. When you use a professional grade of these tools, such as Klein's, then they end up working quite a bit better. That's for sure. I wonder if it will. No, it's going to want to spin in the plastic. You don't really want these to spin. You want them to... Well, we felt a pop, so it was getting close. Because that can end up dulling the die and getting it to go crossways. One of the nice other aspects of these is due to the nature of them, they tend to go through pretty square. I can thread that down by hand, but we can pull this off the other side. And once you're done, then you can just pull it right on through. You don't actually have to unthread it and take it apart while it's still attached to the wall. And then we have a little cutout inside there. We got to bang this loose. No, that's not going to cooperate. Yeah, well, here. There we go. Take that apart, see if we can't get... it's a little bit of a fuss to get that out, but you can see how it cut that out. And it wasn't too bad. But even in plastic and sheet metal, that's one of the nice things, is at least they create a pretty decent hole. There is going to be a burr on the backside. But what makes these a little bit easier is you use a smaller bit to at least get the initial hole going, and then for resizing or just getting good placement, they are pretty useful in the shop. And the other distinct advantage, and one of the big reasons electricians use these, is because they don't generate a bunch of chips. Even though if you're using them to generate a virgin hole, you still have to drill through. But when you're resizing holes, you get this nice little ring. You can use it to make washers. And there are no chips and metal debris to especially interfere with anything electrical. I really appreciate everybody watching and subscribing. And if you haven't subscribed, please do. Until next time, Catus Maximus out.